Joining us right now to discuss this, Ford O'Connell, Republican strategist, and Rick Ungar, host of Steele and Ungar on Sirius XM POTUS Radio, a program I catch every Saturday. Rick is going to have the left's opinion here, and even though he's a liberal, we'd like to have him around anyway. But Ford, we'll get to you in just a second. Rick, I want to start with you. We're seeing this populism over on the Democratic side here, and a lot of folks saying that Elizabeth Warren is 2016's Barack Obama, challenging Hillary Clinton from the left. Is there a validity to this? Is Warren a serious contender?
In a word, no. Listen, I like Elizabeth Warren. I think populism and liberalism and whatever words you want to attach to it have always been present in the Democratic Party. The reality is, though, we're in a different time than the time where Barack Obama was able to rise from nowhere, basically on his having taken an early position against the Iraq War. Elizabeth Warren doesn't have that. If it were to happen somehow, and if she were to win the nomination, I'm afraid she would get soundly whipped. Don't think the country's ready for that type of populism quite yet.
Now, Ford, is there any concern over on the right that there's a chance that someone to the left of Hillary Clinton could get the nomination and then potentially the White House?
Well, we actually are preparing as if Elizabeth Warren could run. It really depends, honestly, on how much more Hillary Clinton trips and falls. But I will say this, Rick may not want to hear this, but really at the end of the day, Elizabeth Warren is the single biggest threat to Hillary Clinton capturing the Democratic nomination for president in 2016. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, she does fire up that progressive base. Do I think that that's out of line with independents? I certainly do. But if basically Hillary Clinton can't find a way to fire up blue-collar voters and voters under 30, she is susceptible from a challenge on the left. And frankly, Elizabeth Warren is most in line with the progressive base of the Democratic Party. In many ways, Elizabeth Warren is the Democrats' version of Ted Cruz.
Interesting. The mirror image of Ted Cruz, Elizabeth Warren. Well, quickly, guys,
that was a great way.
I want to get both of you to weigh in.
I just got to say,
go ahead, Rick.
that was an awesome way for Ford to say we should be so lucky. And I don't hate hearing what you said, Ford. There's some truth to it. But as much as you would like her to be the candidate, the truth is that the Democrats probably don't have a candidate that's going to be particularly effective if it's not Hillary Clinton.
All right, I think
well,
a lot.
Let me say this though. One thing, Rick. Hillary Clinton really only has two reasons for running. One, she's a woman, and two, she can claim that she can win a general election. The deal is Elizabeth Warren takes the woman card right off the table, which really would hurt a lot of Democrats. Now, I agree with you. In a general election, I do think that Elizabeth Warren would get smoked by whoever the Republican nominee is for the simple fact that she's 2 steps to the left of San Francisco.
Well, time will tell on that, guys. But I did hear something very interesting last night on Hillary's appearance on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I want to play a clip, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the former Secretary of State's appearance. Here's Hillary Clinton.
Do you have a favorite shape for that home office? Do you like it? do you like that office? Let's say, would you like that office? Would you like to have corners, or would you like it not to have corners? I don't know.
You know, I think that the world is so complicated. The fewer corners that you can have, the better.
All right, gentlemen, so maybe the most definitive answer we've gotten from Hillary Clinton, who is still at this hour playing coy about her future aspirations for the White House. But something else the former Secretary of State made a point of talking about was the American story and projecting that on a global level, telling the positive aspects. And Ford, I wanted to get to you because one thing we've discussed on numerous occasions is the necessity of the GOP to present a positive image of the future, hope, for lack of a better term here. And Clinton seems to be attuned to this and may know it's a weak spot for the GOP. Is the GOP prepared to talk about a positive future, not just doom and gloom?
Sadly, no. That is the biggest hurdle, really, against the GOP right now. But I will say this. Hillary Clinton hasn't found a way to find a positive vision for the future. Right now, she's really tagging herself as a Bill Clinton Democrat. And unfortunately, again, Rick's side of the aisle has moved 2 steps to the left since the 1990s. She's got to find a way, essentially, to find a positive message, as does the GOP. And that's really the race right now for 2016 on both sides of the aisle. Who can come up with the future of America in the 21st century? Neither party's doing a very good job right now.
All right, and Rick, one issue I want to get to with you, and we'll get a response from Ford on this as well, because I'm sure he has some comments, is we're seeing a full court press from the Democrats this election year on the issue of reproductive rights or religious freedom, depending on how you want to classify it. We have this bill being voted on today in the Senate, which a lot of folks would say is merely ceremonial because we know it's not going to go anywhere in the House. The bill by Mark Udall and Patty Murray, I believe, trying to undo some of the Hobby Lobby stuff here. This seems a little transparent, Rick, but obviously a road the Democrats are willing to go down in 2014.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be so sure about that. I always call these sub-issues, and you see it on both sides of the fence. Certainly Republicans have used these type of social issues, sometimes tripping themselves up in their use of them. And this year, yes, you are seeing Democrats use it to some degree, trying to get some mileage, certainly fundraising mileage, out of the Hobby Lobby case. At the end of the day, I think Ford and I would both agree that elections are not won and lost on these social issues.
No, they are not, but they are also injected a lot of times as wedge issues, as Democrats accuse Republicans of doing with the abortion issue. And Ford, you know, if this is what we're going to hear about, what does it say to you about the lack of the left to have anything good to talk about? They can't talk about foreign policy. They can't really talk about the economy, even though they're trying to. There's still a lot of concern there. Is this all they have to talk about?
Well, the problem for them, the biggest problem is that Barack Obama's approval ratings are in the toilet, and that's really what they're facing as Republicans try to nationalize this. I will say this, though. The reason why we're hearing about these issues is because we're in a midterm. Only 46% of Americans turn out, and it tends to be older, whiter, more conservative men. What the Democrats want to do to basically make sure they hold on to the Senate is turn out unmarried women. I wouldn't go with abortion if I were a Democratic strategist because, frankly, 50% of Americans think you should have some restrictions on it. The better niche issue for Democrats, to be perfectly honest with you, is contraception. I would hit contraception from now until next Tuesday if I were a Democrat, because essentially I need unmarried women to turn out, and frankly, they just don't turn out in midterm elections.
Well, you could argue they're trying to do that with this bill. Wouldn't you agree, Rick?
Yeah, as you said, this bill does not have a big future. Excuse me. It is a good piece of politics to play off of simply because of the Hobby Lobby case upsetting people. So Ford does have a point there, but I will still say at the end of the day, if you're, and he also absolutely correctly identified the problems the Democrats have. You've got a president, and presidents tend to be a big factor in midterm elections. You've got a president with a really bad popularity rating. This is going to be a problem. But I think what you're seeing in some of these Senate races, which are really the important races this fall, is they are trying, these candidates, not to go too heavy on the social issues, to make their arguments more on an economic basis. I think you're going to start to see them use more of the more recent data, which is showing some pickup in the economy if it lasts. This is what's going to become the message, I think.
Ford, what do you think?
That would be nice. That's a perfect world that Rick's living in. Maybe next week I'll have to play the Democratic strategist and he'll play the Republican strategist. But I will say this, really, if you go to West Virginia, you go to Colorado, what you're really hearing besides, working class jobs from the Democrats is War on Women 3. And they're really trying to hit it at home. And if they do, they may be able to save a seat in Louisiana
you're really not hearing it.
Well, I think, Rick,
but
you are.
Because I'm listening to the speeches of these senatorial candidates, and yeah, you'll hear a mention of these things where it makes sense, but it really isn't what you're hearing.
But look at the Udall, the Udall ads in Colorado. They focus. The first two ads Mark Udall released directly target Cory Gardner on the issue of reproductive rights, abortion, birth control, whatever you want to call it. And so it is an issue.
Where are we in the cycle? This is July.
Yeah.
Come on. You guys, you know better. This is July. Wait till we start to get into the election. Very, very, very few people have even started to think about focusing on the election at this point. That's why you do see those kinds of ads now. This is as old as the hills. It's always this way. Wait till we get to the real meat.
Well, gentlemen, we'll have to leave the discussion there.
But you also have to have message saturation. And even in Natalie Tennant's speech, I watched it with Elizabeth Warren. One of the first things she tried to say was the war on women, and Republicans are going to take these things away.
That's right.
You know if you're going to hold the Senate.
But remember,
gentlemen, we're out of time, unfortunately, and that's a sign of a good discussion. So we'll pick it up. No comments about West Virginia, please. We'll save those for another time, guys. I'll say goodbye to both of you, Ford and Rick. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And to the folks at home, too, it does seem like the GOP maybe is a little bit has wised up to this tactic, because you see Marsha Blackburn testifying in the Senate committee yesterday about this issue. Also, Senator Kelly Ayotte and Deb Fischer of Nebraska getting out in front of this issue. War on Women 3 seems like the empresses are striking back in this issue right now. I'm John Bachman. More to come here on America's Forum. Always a chance for you to weigh in on the biggest issues of the day as well. Much more ahead here on Newsmax TV throughout the day, right after this commercial break.